Hey, I'm Ducky, and today before we get into anything, I just want to take a moment to appreciate this eyeliner. Look how cool it looks. And I'm not going anywhere today, I'm just filming in my room, so that's always when I have the best makeup days. But I cannot take credit for this eyeliner. I just want to show the person I was inspired by. So this is, I don't know if you can see, it's really not Irina on Instagram. They did this awesome eyeliner and I wanted to give it a go. So yeah. But back to today's actual video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this patch hoodie. You can't really see it very well, but you'll see it better in the video. I did have to cannibalize my old leather jacket because it had been sat in storage for ages, folded up, which is one of the worst things you can do for fake leather. Probably real leather too, I don't know about real leather. So it was just, I mean, before I put it in, I think it was flaking already, and it was just a flaky mess. Like, I picked it out of my wardrobe and my floor just became black with all the little plastic particles coming off of the leather jacket. And it's heavy, it was warm, it was a sensory nightmare for my autism. I never wore it, I always felt really uncomfortable in it. And then I was watching Rattus YouTube channel, and if you have never heard of them and you like alternative fashion and DIY, how have you been living under a rock? I will link them below because they are incredible. They make so many cool clothes. I don't know how they get these things done. They have made so many things, so many cool things, and their videos are awesome. They are a bit on the longer side, so it depends whether you've got a good attention span, I suppose, but they're really interesting and just great fun. I love watching them. Anyway, what I was saying is, on their channel I saw them make a patch hoodie, and I was just like, instead of a leather jacket, and I was just like, how have I never thought of that idea? I love wearing hoodies, so yeah, I spent ages looking in charity shops to try and find a hoodie, and they all had writing on them or like big logos on them. I just wanted a plain black hoodie. I didn't realise that would be like impossible to find. Admittedly, I can't go to the charity shops that often because I am disabled and I kind of need someone to go with me if I'm walking about and trying to go into different charity shops and stuff. But yeah, I just couldn't find one. But I did go into TK Maxx. It was around Halloween, so we were going in to look at Halloween stuff, as all alternative people do, surely. You go to TK Maxx at Halloween to look at the Halloween stuff even if you don't buy anything. I rarely buy anything, I just like to oogle at them. But anyway, my partner found a really cute cropped hoodie. I can't say it. Yeah, it's cropped. You'll be able to see it in the video anyway. A really cute cropped hoodie, and I was really torn because I really wanted to get it second hand, but obviously I also know it's a consignment store, so it is stuff that would otherwise go to the landfill, so I decided to bite the bullet and buy one. I probably should have, and the minute I had bought it and I was outside and I had put it on, I realised I never looked at Vinted. Why didn't I look at Vinted? So yeah, rookie mistake there, but you live and you learn. I'm sure I'll be making another one at some point in the future. Anyway, this intro is getting really long, so I'm gonna leave you there and let's get into the video. I completely forgot that I need to show you the before. So here's the before of this hoodie that I bought. It's cute, but it's boring, simply put. So here's the before video. You're welcome. First off, I wanted to add some spikes that I had in my stash for ages. I chose to put them across the hood because it looks cool, and that was kind of the only reasoning. But when I told my mum, her instant reply was, "Is that so you can headbutt someone with them?" I hadn't thought about that, but you know, take a guess where I got my personality from. So I used the channel for like the toggle string things that you pull to tighten the hood to line up the spikes, and I spaced them out with 1 inch. I spaced them out with 1 inch between each one. Then I had to poke a hole through the fabric. I tried using an awl, you know, one of them spiky things, but I found a craft knife worked better because it all didn't make the holes big enough. Of course, if you're going to do this, don't do it like me. Make sure your fingers are not in the way of the blade and you are doing this on a surface, not hovering above your legs. I then pushed the backings through the holes and twisted on the spikes. I also made sure to check that the cord for the hoodie was on the same side of the spikes across the whole hood so it could be tightened without issues. I don't know if it would cause issues, but in my mind it probably would, and it would possibly maybe pull out the spikes and stuff. I don't normally tighten my hoods anyway, so it's not really an issue, but it's just me being a perfectionist probably, but it's best to avoid issues, I think. Once you've put all the spikes on, I started to tighten them with a screwdriver. Not all spikes will have that option, but these are the type I was using. But my hand got a really bad cramp, and then I remembered I had a boyfriend that could do it for me. So, crucial step, give the boring stuff to your partner to do. For painting the patches, I am using a mixture of white acrylic paint and fabric softener. This is a poor man's version of fabric paint and has been used for years. I wouldn't recommend using this combination for anything you're planning on machine washing. Either get fabric medium to mix with your acrylic paint or get fabric paint. Or I've also heard printing ink is really good, like screen printing ink, but I don't know. But I would also encourage you to do your own research on this. It took a bit of trial and error to get a good consistency for the paint, and I had to just play about with mixing different amounts of fabric softener, which too much softener and it's not got enough pigment, but not enough fabric softener and it's difficult to paint. In the details of the paint is too thick and it will probably flake when it's dry. It is important to remember that you need to heat seal this paint. I believe you need to do this with most fabric paints and fabric mediums as well, So make sure you check the instructions on these. For my patches, I heat sealed them using an iron on its hottest setting. I just used a piece of greaseproof paper between the iron and the patches to make sure it didn't stick to the iron and ruin the iron. That's the last thing you want. You don't want paint stuck to your iron, especially when it's not your iron and it's your nan's iron. I don't think she'd appreciate that. If you want your patches to last longer, hemming them is a great way to avoid fraying, especially if it is going to be being machine washed, because that will fray things quicker. But at the same time, fraying might be the look you're going for, so, you know, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. This took forever, but I found it really relaxing. Before I started painting, I found a white pencil that would show up on the denim I was using and drew out all the designs first, so that I had a guide for when I was painting. If you aren't a proficient painter, then it might be easier to find less intricate logos to paint or to use stencils. Ratus is a great channel that uses stencils to make patches and has plenty of videos going over that. So I would recommend going to them for advice on that, because I've never used a stencil, so I wouldn't be able to give you much information on that, on how to do that. Also, you need to remember that different types of materials will fray differently and will need hemming, won't need hemming. I'm personally using old jeans because my ex that I used to live with just went through jeans like nothing. They would always just, you know, before they would be fine, and then they'd be a massive rip in them and like on the crotch, and it just wouldn't be fixable, or at least not for my skill levels. So I have loads of old jean material just lying around, so that's what I'm using. You can probably use other materials too. Obviously jeans, the patches are going to be a bit more sturdy, whereas say t-shirt material, it's not going to be so sturdy, but it would probably still work. I'm not entirely sure how you would want to sew those on. You would probably want to test and see different stitches and see if some of them make it fray, if some stretch it in a weird way. But yeah, I can only give you advice on the jean patches because that's what I'm doing. Hemming, at least this type of hemming, there is lots of different types of hemming, is simply folding the edge over and sewing it in place. This is a really simple hem. I'm sure there's a proper name for it. For this specific type of hem, I don't know. I'm not proficient in sewing enough to know that. First off, you need to be able to thread a needle. When I was learning to sew, I was taught to place the thread between my thumb and finger with a very small amount of thread poking out, and then take the other needle and push it against your fingers where the thread is. This makes it so much easier. If the end of your thread is frayed, I tend to suck the thread gently, then twist between my fingers to make it more uniform. You can also use water for this or melted candle wax for this. Obviously, be careful if you're using melted candle wax because you don't want to put material too close to an open flame, and also melted candle wax can burn you really badly. I'm not great at tying knots in my thread, so I try to do at least 2 knots that are on top of each other so that it makes a bigger knot, and to make sure I have a strong hold on the knot doesn't just come through the material. And that also depends if you've got a fabric with a bigger weave, which is how tight the fibres are. The tighter the fibres, the smaller the knot you need. The looser the fibres, the bigger the knot you need. So it might just take a bit of trial and error if you've never done this before. That's how I learned. I'm sure there are better tutorials out there if you're really struggling with this bit. I always cut off the tail as close to the knot as possible without cutting the knot before I start stitching, as I find it easier to get closer without risking cutting your stitches, which in the end gives a cleaner look. Then I just do a simple running stitch. This just means putting your needle through the top of your fabric and then back through to the bottom. I believe it's called a running stitch. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what a running stitch is. You can make these stitches as long or as short as you like. However, the closer the stitches, the stronger the stitches, as the longer stitches are easier to get hitched on something and get snapped. It's also a good practice to put finishing knots along your stitch, so if the thread does break, you have less that will unravel. I'm using an industrial thread used for making mattresses and beds, so I'm not so worried about mine breaking, but it's again good practice and can help when using cheaper threads, as it can be really disheartening, especially if you're a beginner, to sewing for your stitches to fall out. And that being said, I still do put those knots in just because I'm paranoid. Another thing to take note of is that some fabrics are harder to sew than others. I'm using jean materials, which means I make sure to not put my stitches too close to the edge, as this can cause the material to start to fray and unravel. I would recommend giving yourself more space at the edge to work than I did. I was a little overzealous when I cut my patches out. I find the best thing to do for sewing is to put on a YouTube video or a movie and just zone out a bit. I wanted to make a round patch and thought I would show you how to create one. First I cut a circle with an extra allowance for the hem, then I cut slits into the hem allowance all the way around at small intervals. This is important because it creates slack, which means you can create a curved hem without puckering and helps the patch lay flat. I then sew the hem, folding each tab we've created one at a time and sewing them in place. It can be fiddly and you have to make sure you're creating a smooth curve, so you may have to fold the tabs multiple times to get the right angle before you sew them down. And of course, if this is too difficult, you can do a square patch with a circle on it. You don't have to cut the patch to match the shape of the art on it. It's not really that necessary. But for sewing them down, you just sew them the same as you would for the other patches. I forgot to say earlier, but I always make sure to start my stitches on the back of the fabric so that it's going to be hidden, because the knot isn't necessarily the nicest looking, so you want that to be on the side that isn't going to be seen or isn't going to be seen as much. So like on the inside of a jacket, the underside of the patch that's going to be glued, no not glued, stitched to your jacket. Okay, so I have heat pressed all of these with the iron. I have white embroidery thread Might not be enough, but we'll see. And I have the hoodie, so I'm gonna get to sewing these all on. I was going to initially sew them on with like black thread that isn't visible and then do the decorative embroidery thread, but I think I'll be okay with just the embroidery thread. And I also have about a week, what day is it today? Wednesday, so I've got a week and 2 days until I want this to be ready for a concert I'm going to, so embroidery frost is going to have to work. If it comes undone, I can redo it in the future. It's not the end of the world. Okay. I chose to sew my patches onto my jacket with big white stitches, as most of the original battle jackets were done back in the day. If you're worried about these stitches not being strong enough, you can sew with a thread that matches your patch colour first to hold in place, and then use the white stitches as purely decoration. If you struggle to get hold of white embroidery thread, as I am using, you may also be able to use tooth floss. I know this was very common practice for punks in the 80s. I would make sure to do some research on that, as I'm not entirely sure if tooth floss is as strong as it used to be, and I believe some tooth floss are now designed to decompose or disintegrate in water, which wouldn't be great on a patch jacket. I already had a load of embroidery frost from past hobbies and also hand-me-downs from my nan, so it made sense for me to use this. And of course, you could always use a different colour to white as well. I love the look of a fully black and white jacket, but I've seen some really cool jackets that use different colours as well. Okay, excuse the awful lighting and my makeup. This is how far we got. I've got these two sewn on. This one's partly sewn on. This one's sewn on. And this one's sewn on. I forgot I was going to put pockets on it. But I have these big patches which I think will work quite well as pockets. So that one. And that one, so I'm going to make those into pockets. I realised while putting my patches on my jacket that I was originally planning on adding pockets to my jacket, as it didn't have pockets and I hate clothes that don't have pockets. I realised I had two very big patches of practically the same shape and size and decided to add these on as pockets onto the front. Now this is a cropped hoodie, so the pockets are probably a bit higher than you'd want on a normal hoodie, but I have used this hoodie already and these pockets are great for holding my phone while I'm going to the toilet, throwing my lighter into, or some rubbish when there's no nearby bins. I highly suggest adding pockets to clothes that don't have them to make your fashion more functional, even if that's the only thing you do. Pockets are great. I made sure to only sew down the two sides and the bottom of the patch so that the top was still accessible like a normal pocket. However, I wanted the pockets to look like the rest of the patches, so I sewed the white stitches across the top of the patches as well, but this time only going through the patch material and not the jumper. I'm so happy with how this came out, and it's so much better than the idea I had in mind just to make some plain black pockets. So it's all finished. I don't even want to look at it. Like an absolute idiot, I just threw it in the wash with all my other clothes. And it's all so I'm gonna have to repaint all of that, which is great. And make sure I never put it in the washing machine ever again. I thought I'd already put it in the washing machine so it would be fine, but I'm now realizing that when I put it in the washing machine, it didn't have any patches on, it just had spikes on. That's why it was fine in the washing machine. So I need to make sure I hand wash this in the future. So I will so this was meant to be the final results. I'm gonna have to redo it all, and then I can do the final results. I'm so annoyed with myself. I'm so annoyed with myself. I put so much time and effort into this. But yeah, don't machine wash hand painted items. It seems obvious. I don't know why I did. There you go. There it is. There's the update. This was a labour of love, and it took such a long time, mainly because I took so many breaks from it, as I started this in October 24 and planned for it to be finished for a concert in December. That eventually got cancelled anyway. Obviously, I decided to wear this before I finished the video, got it dirty and put it in the washing machine, and that was devastating to see all my hard work just crumbling away. So I would suggest other people get either screen printing ink or fabric medium or something. But I also would just say, if you've hand painted a piece of clothing and put a lot of work into it, maybe don't just throw it in the washing machine. But I'm in love with it. I finally got to wear it to a show, the Yumi at 6 farewell tour, which devastating that they have split up, or are splitting up at the end of the tour, and also devastating that I went to the Bristol show and the Sheffield show. My favourite song, like ever, of like pretty much anyone, I always come back to the song Bite My Tongue with Ollie Sykes. They brought Ollie Sykes on, didn't they? Of course they did. Devastating. That's the last time they're both gonna be on stage singing it together, most likely, so I'm great. I'm holding up great, don't worry. But when I was wearing this at the tour, I got a compliment on it and it made my day. They said I should sell them, but you know, there's a lot of copyright issues with selling patches of band logos that are copyrighted, so I won't be doing that, but thank you anyway. I think it looks so cool, and it's a packed jacket, so it's never truly finished, because I will add more patches to this, and maybe I'll take patches off in the future. Patch jackets are meant to be an ongoing project, and that's exactly what it is. But anyway, if you've forgotten how it looked before, here's the before. Also, I have lost a fair amount of weight over the course of this video as well, so it fits better than it did, but I haven't done anything to the fit of it. I'd just like to point that out just in case people were confused. And yeah, the fit isn't to do with the DIY, but I love it so much. And I'll go to the final results now so you can see it in its glory. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.